Your wish? Whatever you'd like to ask. My adventures? I'm hardly an old man just returned from across the ocean, am I? Should I shake my fist at nearby children while I talk about the good old days? Falling down a flight of stairs is an adventure. Falling into someone's bed, also an adventure. I am assuming what you're looking for are professional anecdotes. Let's see, my second mission ever for the Crows was a bit intriguing. I was sent to kill a mage who had been meddling in politics. In Antiva, nobody is too important to escape the reach of the Crows. They've killed kings and queens. That is simply how it is. As it turned out, the mage in question was quite a delightful young woman. Long, divine legs, as I recall. I caught her in a carriage on her way to escape to the provinces. After I killed her guard, she got down on her hands and knees and begged for her life. Rather aptly, I might add. So I joined her in the carriage for the night and left the next morning. Well, yes, twice, actually. Then she decided to try and use me instead. The woman had actually convinced me to speak to the Crows on her behalf. What can I say? I was young and foolish at the time. Then, as I was kissing her goodbye to return to Antiva City, she slipped on the threshold and fell backwards out of the carriage. Broke her neck. Shame, really, but at least it happened quickly. At first, yes. Well, not upset. Surprised is really a better word. Then I found out that she had told the driver to take her to Janellen instead. She had planned to lose me in the provinces. I would have looked very foolish to the Crows. As it was, my master was very impressed that I had done such a fine job of making it look like an accident. The circle of Magi was unaware of foul play, and everyone was happier all around. I suppose, but she was dead. She didn't need to be happy. It was after that when I learned that one needn't let a pretty face go to your head. Professionalism was key. That's my moral of the day, you see. Without a doubt. But a certain coldness is called for, no? You would think that after all my youth and the hardships of my training, such coldness would have come naturally. Alas, not. But that's enough tale spinning from me for the moment. Talking about the mage has made me a bit nostalgic, I'm afraid. Ah, the good old days.
I know that look. You have something on your mind, don't you? Of course. Yes, a little better. Time heals all wounds, so they say. Scars remain, but they are just colors in the painting that is my life, no? I wish things had happened differently, but knowing her and knowing me, I don't think it could have. We had good times, though, and I look back on those fondly. Whatever happened after will never change the truth of the past. Yes, once, a long time ago, she was a worldly woman and there was so much she knew and was willing to share with me. I would have done anything for her once. She used to be different. Happier, I think. She loved music and had a weakness for sugary cakes. Maybe she was always lying about who she was. Or maybe she changed over the years. I do. And I probably always will. I will just move on. And I think I have. You are how she used to be years ago. A joy to be around, a constant companion and a listening ear in times of need. Yes, I know that. I don't think you would ever do what she did to me. I have never regretted leaving Orlais. I do not regret any of the pain, the anger, the loneliness, because it brought me to you. And I love you. It's so wonderful to say that to someone again. But people are starting to look at me strangely. We will speak of this again, I promise.
What's on your mind? Is something troubling you? A Grey Warden should put aside the person that he used to be. It has shaped the person that he is, but he has become something greater. Grey Wardens have no titles. They owe no allegiance to a king or lord. They cannot serve one people. They must serve them all and protect them all. You are one of the 2 surviving Grey Wardens in Ferelden. You defend all of us, and much rests on your shoulders. It may not mean much to you, but thank you for having the courage to continue to fight. And that gives me hope.
There you are. I was thinking, we've been through a lot together now. We're like old war buddies. So I figured, why not invite you to share a drink, huh? A drink from my own stash, my family's recipe, and dedicated to my comrades in arms. Yes! The Warden steps up! You handled that like a champion, my friend. Most impressive. How do you feel? Oh no, the rest is for me. You'd need to do something really unspeakable to get into the rest of my stash. I just wanted to tell you, after all we've been through, you're like family to me. Closest thing I've had in years. Aye, a toast with a dry cup. You're not getting any more of my brew. So, do you want to talk about something? What about? Well, what do you think? I mean, she was my wife. I spent 2 years trying to save her while she was off boffing that tramp and feeding my cousins to the Darkspawn. And now she's dead, and there's no way to ever make things better. It's good to be with friends, you know. Or at least chest deep in fallen enemies. You want to get moving now. My throat's sore from all this relating.
You called. Speak, then. Then I suggest we move on. I am hardly surprised. Very well. As you wish.
I notice that you are spending a great deal of time with that girl, the bard. Is it not? Seems to me that 'tis exactly what I think. Oh, I'm not opposed to the girl. She seems agreeable enough for the sort of man who likes that sort of thing. My point is that you and I have shared a bed together. It seems hardly fitting to have you doting upon that girl at the very same time, does it? And yet the evidence speaks to the contrary. If you feel nothing for the girl, your actions say otherwise. The crux of the matter is this. I do not share. If you wish to pursue that girl, that means you do not wish to pursue me. 'Tis all the same to me. I will not be where I am not valued. I simply wish to know where I stand. Then you need to say that to Leliana. Sooner rather than later. Your desire? So, full of questions, are you? You are very cute to ask so many questions. Really? Perhaps we should be wrapped in ribbons and adorned with flowers. So cute are we, too. My mother has been hunted from time to time, yes, by Templar fools like Alistair, which should tell you how successful they generally were. Flemeth made a bit of a game of it, in fact. The Templars would come again, and she would look at me and smile and say that the fun was to begin once more. I found the game fun. I was too young to understand the truth behind what was happening. Flemeth would warn them once. 'Twas a warning they inevitably failed to heed. And then the true game began. Often Flemeth would use me as bait. A little girl to scream and run and lure the Templars deeper into the wilds and to their doom. 'Twas a game, and I a young girl. If I didn't get to play, I would have been very upset. Thankfully, the wilds is a vast place. Once they found us, Flemeth would simply move us elsewhere, and we would be lost within the forest once again. I did not understand the danger we faced until I was much older. I had never heard of apostates or maleficarum. Would they have regretted hurting me? I was a young child. Yet do you think they would not have gleefully held my head aloft as a trophy? There are no trials for apostates, no prisons, no mercy. There are only absolutes, so only survival matters. If the wilds have taught me anything, 'tis this. First, you must survive. Do you disagree? Oh? I would ask what exactly, but I'm certain that would be a lengthy conversation, and suddenly I grow very weary. Enough of this talk. Let us return to the task at hand.
Enchantment? Enchantment!
I am listening. It doesn't have better things to do. Oh yes, that I remember quite well. My former master, the Mage Wilhelm, he brought me. As I recall, he had acquired some position with whatever lord ruled the land. I, being little more than a glorified possession at the time, was brought along. Oh, how he enjoyed impressing the villagers with me. Gollum snarl at that villager there, be fearsome. And of course, I would have to do it. I'd have happily stomped them all into paste, and then ripped down their little houses and stomped on them, too. In fact, after 30 years of watching them, I'd do it twice. What I didn't like was being ordered to do it. Dangled in front of those frightened morons like some scary thing. Once I was a statue, it took those villagers years before they'd even approach me. The first one to actually work up the nerve to touch me urinated himself. Ugh. He did love using that control rod. Fondled it so much his wife actually threatened to throw it in the lake. Ha! I would have liked to have seen that. Which reminds me, where did it find the rod? Did it pay a great deal for it? Hag. I traveled with the mage. He did a lot of traveling, I remember that. But where we went? It is rather fuzzy. I remember great battles, fighting many humans long ago. They were all very soft and squishy. And before that, No, there are only images. I was somewhere dark. That is where Wilhelm kept me. He wanted me out in the open where I could be frightening like a scarecrow. I was supposed to watch for thieves. Pah! Plus, his wife didn't want me indoors. She said there wasn't room for me. Hag. Humph! I was once larger, 10 feet tall. Then the loathsome hag complained that I couldn't fit through the doors. So the mage had me shrunk down. Can it believe it? And she still wanted me out. with a chisel. And a lot of nerve. Good. I was just about done talking about it. It does like to have a good chat now and again, doesn't it?
I suppose I shouldn't be surprised at your success. You beat me. Perhaps you can do this after all. It hardly matters now. I've certainly been mistaken about you before. Do you want something? I suppose I have a moment. Hate doesn't describe it. I've seen painted, masked lords beat an old farmer to death with riding crops. To this day, I don't know why. Is that hate? I saw good, sensible men fight armored chevaliers with nothing. No weapons, no armies, not even hope of success to see the occupation end. Is that hate? You won't believe me when I tell you this, but it doesn't matter. I never fought because I hated Orlais. This was for Merrick and for Eldon. I made a tactical error. I didn't want to start a war, I wanted to stop one. I failed. So I suppose my intentions don't amount to much. The past is always with us. It's in our bones and our blood, and we wear it on our skin. You can think otherwise, but you'll never get far without it. It's odd to hear you say that. I can still see the accusations you haven't voiced hovering around you like a swarm of hornets. For what it's worth, though, thank you. In any case, there's no use discussing this. We have much work left to do. Go ahead. Anora always did have a flair for the dramatic. She could have been a bard. Anora is a politician at heart. There's one thing she knows. It's how to move people. Is that a serious question? Is there someone else you know of who could stand up to the Landsmeet? Well, I'm sure having you come to her rescue gave Anora no small amount of pleasure. Of course.
I know what you're going to say, and I'm just going to spare you the trouble. You've chosen, haven't you? I had a feeling this would happen. I suppose I hope you are happy together. This is getting a little awkward, and I think I'm going to excuse myself now.
Yes.
Yes. exhausting and draining. I called forth the spirit that sustains me so that it could lend us aid. I did not realize it would take this much out of me. It seemed a good idea at the time, if a little rash. I think it may have weakened the spirit a little. Well, that's certainly conceivable. I suppose I shouldn't be using that particular trick to entertain children at parties. It's not a demon that requires controlling. Really, you need not fear it. I promise I'll be careful. And thank you. Your concern is touching.
Sense something wrong here. Only one!
This has gone well.
Thank you. I didn't expect the band's men to notice my escape so quickly. I tried to hide here in the woods, but there wasn't time. And now I'm a dead man. You were there in Ostagar. You know how things went. For me, it was either this, or die in some darkspawn's belly, or be hung as a deserter. Better a deserter than a traitor, right, Loghain? I fled the battlefield when you betrayed us. I abandoned my men, and Cailan with them. He was my king, my friend.
Where's all your grand posturing now? At least I took my men with me. You should have grown a spine and done the same, soldier.
Maker, all that time in Ban Loren's prison, and I couldn't stop thinking about all they suffered that one dark night at Ostagar. No, perhaps not. But I've been given the chance to set things right. If it's the likes of you who sees me to my final hour, perhaps things happen for a reason. The king entrusted me with the key to the royal arms chest. If anything were to happen to him, he said, it was vital I deliver it to the wardens. He didn't get the chance. Duncan was so busy with the new recruits and keeping Loghain at bay. Whatever his reasoning, it's me Cailan entrusted it to.
It's where the whelp kept his daddy's sword. Cailan didn't even carry it into the battle. Said he was saving it for the archdemon. No doubt it's still there, wrapped in pretty velvet.
More than that, there was a secret compartment where he kept documents concerning his dealings with Empress Selene and the Orlesians. The Maker has a sense of humor, doesn't he? I suppose it's for the best, however. Had I kept it, it would be in Ban Loren's hands by now.
But you said Cailan entrusted it to you.
I was afraid. I thought I would lose it on the battlefield, so I stashed it in the camp. Please, it's probably still there.
Marik's sword. What a prize for the Darkspawn that would be.
I hope not. Would they know how to work the lock, even if they did?
The Darkspawn are more cunning than we give them credit for. But the king trusted that lock with his secrets. I'd guess that the contents of that chest are still intact.
The key's behind a loose stone at the base of a statue. I'll draw a map for you, so you'll know where to search.
It's not a place I thought I'd be returning to so soon, and least of all with you, Grey Warden. If it's not too much to ask of a commanding officer, just keep your moralizing to a minimum.
The events at Ostagar still haunt my thoughts, Warden. If that is where we are headed, I would like to accompany you.
It is vital that the king's documents do not fall into the wrong hands. As for Marik's sword, it is too powerful to be pawed at by those monsters. Same for the king's other arms and armor. And if you happen to find Cailan's body, see it off. He was our king. He shouldn't be left to rot amidst the Darkspawn's filth.
Darkspawn approach! Watch for their blood! There's fucking more dying!
Let me know when you're done glaring at me, madam. My memories of this place are no fonder than your own.
No. I remember good friends dying in this place, and a man whom I respected as my king.
All I remember is a fool's death and a hard choice. I'd make the same again.
Even knowing all that you know now, Loghain MacTyr?
Even so. Come, madam, our bitterness is better spent against the Darkspawn than each other.
Yes, Maker forbid that I might waste a whole life's bitterness just on you.
As you wish.
How cold does the king's metal feel in your hands, Loghain?
I feel nothing, old woman, and your constant prodding for regrets will gain you little.
And what if it had been your daughter in his place? Would you have regrets then?
Had I raised her to be such a fool as that, I'd have been in no better position to save her. What you forget is that your king was beyond saving. The Darkspawn would either have had him or have had us all. Do you really believe we would have been so much better off had I chosen otherwise?
It is my belief that a man who ties his own hands behind his back should not cry foul that there is no one left to defend his king.
I'll oblige you this time, but normally I don't fight dullards and idiots.
Fear is your weakness! Now make us! You're getting sloppy! That's why it's more dying plus you! Is it just me, or do you actually think you have a chance?
Right.
Show me what you got!
The cheating bastard!
Watch your mouth, Logain MacTier, unless you have forgotten the company you now keep.
It's not my company I worry about, madam, but my former son-in-law's. Do you see the familiar tone with which the Empress writes him, as if my daughter were not already his wife?
Kaelin loved Honora with every ounce of his heart. It was plain for all to see. The only thing that ever stood between them was you.
Are you blind, old woman? The plot is plain as day within this letter. Love or no, Caleb was gonna cast my daughter aside and wed himself to that bitch Celine. In a single vow, Orlais would claim all that they could never win by war. And what would Ferelden gain? A fool of a king could strut about and call himself an emperor.
And what of peace? Would it not bring us that at least?
Peace. I would have thought your age might have granted more wisdom, madam. Peace just means fighting someone else's enemies in someone else's war for someone else's reasons.
get started. This should be easy. On it. Let's get started.
Well, that's one less to worry about.
Are they? Let's take the battle to them!
Dark. Destroy them! Is it just me, or do you actually think you have a chance? Excellent. I'll live to fight another day. Only one shall
Let's get started.
shall we?
This shit's easy.
A little frantic? Ha! I can see why! Victory! Armed and dangerous, ready for action!
You've fallen silent, Loghain.
And I wish you would do the same, madam. It's been a long and wearying day.
On that, at least, the two of us can agree.
We are done here. Let's go home, and not speak of this again.
Speak your venom and get it over with, Loghain.
He may be a fool, but he doesn't deserve to be strung up like this. Sure, throw roses and wax poetic about how great a leader he would have been had he only not thrown himself on the swords of the advancing Darkspawn. As you command, Grey Warden.
Your wish? Oh, this should be good. What would you like to discuss? Your wish? Whatever you'd like to ask. Again? Well now, what might interest you, I wonder? Shall I describe the stages involved with Lanthrax poisoning? I watched a man go through all 7 once. No, I'll not inflict that upon you just yet. Let's see, how about the largest battle I ever took part in? That would have been the slaughter of Prince Osrin. Did you hear of that down in these parts? Me? Not personally, but I did take part in the attack. Prince Osrin was 4th in line to the throne, you see. He started off as 11th, but worked his way up the old-fashioned method by inheriting control of an entire Crocel from his grandfather. After assassinating his way through the royal family, the king hired 3 other cells to take down Prince Osrin once and for all. I was in one of those cells. Antivan royalty is very much bound up in the Crows. You wouldn't want it run by a bunch of commoners, after all, would you? And this means they get involved in politics quite often. This particular fight nearly bankrupted the nation, I understand. It almost ended up putting a Crow on the throne, a commoner. But that's a whole different story. I played a very small part. My part in the entire battle was taken up trying to reach Princess Verina, who had thrown in with her brother. I killed about 11 of her guards personally before I got knocked out of a window. I landed in a river and nearly drowned. I was fished out by some urchins who robbed me blind. Made off with my boots, too. At least they didn't cut my throat. And that was my part in history. I had to find my way back to the safe house, bruised and naked, and thankful to be alive. But there you go. Tale told. Let's be off before I tell more embarrassing stories, huh?
I know that look. You have something on your mind, don't you? Of course. Of course I do. I love stories far too much to keep them to myself. Everyone should be able to benefit from them, I think. I know that look. You have something on your mind, don't you? Of course. There are many rumors about spies, or legion or otherwise. What are you referring to exactly? Oh, I see what you're getting at. Honestly? Yes. Why shouldn't I? Violence is not the only solution. People respond eagerly to others who they believe understand them. They seek approval, friendship, sometimes love. This can be exploited. You don't think it is? I took what I wanted from them, leaving them none the wiser and unharmed. It is a game, one that can be won with little bloodshed if one plays well. And crude. Why not make someone want to do what you suggest, instead of forcing them to do it? Everyone can be seduced by the right woman. The trick is predicting who she is and becoming her. Master the game, and no one can resist you. If I might be so bold, yes, I was quite good at it. Sometimes, all I had to do was toss a glance and a smile. Men read promises into such things and will go to great lengths to see that promise fulfilled. I could... what? Oh, aren't you funny? I see your point. We will slay this darkspawn using conventional means, pointy sticks and all that. But come, it is getting late, and there is much to be done.
Have you heard much about the Grey Wardens of old? Griffins. Alas, that seems to be the only thing people remember from the tales. The mighty flying mounts that bore the Grey Wardens into battle. Unfortunately, they've all passed back into the Maker's hand. So that wish will have to go unfulfilled. It was said that watching the wardens ride in on their white griffins was enough to rouse a weary heart and put the dance back in the step of an old man. The Grey Wardens were powerful, feared and respected, but they also inspired the common people. I remember a tale that was told to me many years ago. Maker's mercy, it's like talking to a child. Yes, there are griffins in this story. The blight had ravaged the land for months, and the armies of the great kings had amassed for one last stand. As the sun burst through the clouds that boiled and churned in the dark sky above, it illuminated a vast, seething horde of darkspawn, with the archdemon at its head. And it was then, when courage seemed to fail, and all lost to death and despair, that the Grey Wardens came. They arrived with the beating of wings like mighty war drums, and stood before the armies of men. Yes, griffins. Now listen to the rest of the story. The Grey Wardens, grim and fearless, marched forth, ever between the men and the encroaching darkspawn. They formed a shield of their own bodies and held that line until the archdemon was dead, and the last darkspawn lay trampled in the dirt. And then, demanding neither reward nor recognition for their sacrifice, the Grey Wardens departed. When the clouds finally rolled back, and the sun shone full upon the blighted ground, the great kings knew that they had lost no men, and none of their blood had been spilled. This is a tale about no battle the Grey Wardens have fought, and yet about them all. They have always defended us from the Darkspawn, taking losses so we do not have to. People may have forgotten over the centuries, but nothing has changed. This knowledge has been blessing and burden to Grey Wardens past, and now it shall be your blessing and your burden.
Just leave me alone, Warden. Seriously. I don't know. I guess we're pretty good friends now, right? I just keep thinking about all that slag with Bronca. How I've turned out. I always said I was this way because she left, but I think maybe she left because of how I am. No, she just estimated me. She knew how I was, and because of that, she left without me. Worked out in my favor, though. I'm here fighting the good fight, not fed to Carradin's traps, or her pet darkspawn. Did you want to talk about something? What about? You get a sword or an axe, and are told to go out and defend your city. It's the best thing in the world. That is until you try to live in the city you saved. I mean, they train you to kill, teach you to harness your rage at the first noise you hear, then try to set 100 sodding rules about it. Like those provings. Ancestors show their favor through the strongest arm, right? So why so many rules saying how to fight, and when you win, and not to bloody kill? Killing's what swords are for. Yeah, if that's how you feel, I'll try that out next time the Darkspawn are chewing on your leg. This makes me cranky. Don't you have any other inane questions? Aye, all right then.
You called. As you wish.
We're in camp, so 'tis as good a time as any. Perhaps? Shall I consult my capricious nature and divine an answer for you? I am to be indulged. How exciting. Let me think. Very well. It shall be as you wish, voracious as your appetite may be.
Enchantment? Enchantment!
I am listening. It has already vanquished one of its enemies. I am most startled. Truly, I would have expected that the traitor would have defeated it. Perhaps it would have been put in prison, or drawn and quartered. I was curious to find out which. Most ingenious. It has made an ally out of an enemy. Can it do the same with a Darkspawn, I wonder? Does it wish me to leave? I can, though I see no reason to go. No doubt. Without me, it would have to carry its inventory on its own. Perhaps we should continue. Its chances of success are small enough without further dawdling.
Do you want something? I suppose I have a moment. He was my friend. If he'd wanted to conquer the Fade, I would have led the charge. I was hunting, well, poaching, to be entirely honest, when a boy my own age came stumbling out of the woods. He was so dirty, you'd have thought he'd been dug up out of the ground. The traitorous bootlickers who'd just murdered the Queen, though I didn't know it at the time. He was bloody, exhausted, and obviously being hunted. I offered to take him to my father's camp. Yes, I didn't find out who he was for a while, though. But I've rattled on for too long already. We should get moving. There are men who inspire such devotion that everyone around would lay down their lives for him. And there are men who would come and go from this world, and no one notes it. What makes them so? Your guess is as good as mine. Merrick was remarkable. That's all I can say of him. He nearly did. Merrick was never one to avoid his duty. And given his preference, he would have acknowledged his son no matter the circumstance. But he had more than his honor to think of. It would have ruined Rowan, after all. She'd be reduced to a concubine in the eyes of our neighbors, and put Kaelin's status as heir in question. So Merrick made the hard choice. Eamon offered to raise the boy, and that was that. I was turned by then, and a general. You can buy respect through birth or by bloodshed, I've found. But we've been idle long enough. We should get moving. Go ahead. I suppose that depends on how much of the kingdom was left by then. Once the border was secure, the army would have regrouped to push back the Darkspawn in the south. It's easy to say now. When Chevaliers were massing on our doorstep, things were a little less clear. We couldn't, especially after Ostagar. It wasn't an ideal plan, but it seemed necessary at the time. There was never any question in my mind that Honora would remain on the throne. After all, who else was there? Maric had no brothers or sisters. Most of the Therans were publicly hung by Megran when he took power. Go ahead. Eamon is a shrewd man. He'll be advising the boy. He'll do all right, I suppose. Doing all right is not the same as doing well. Your friend may get good advice from Eamon, but he's weak. All the bands know it. You can see them. A pack of wild dogs waiting for a bone. The first chance they get, they'll pry concessions out of him. They'll pick at the throne until it's only a gilded chair with no power or authority at all. Because Eamon, for all his merits, is a conservative man. He believes in tradition and inheritance, and would never see the daughter of a freeholder, however gifted, in power. And if there'd been any other heir, Eamon would never have suggested the boy. This discussion profits no one. I may be wrong. I will certainly hope so. By all means. Honora is a good queen. She has been for 5 years now. I am a bit, but she'll do well. I have to say that anyway, for if word gets back to her that I said otherwise, she'll be furious. In all seriousness, Honora is formidable. You should know that by now. They always have before. Few among the nobles have ever been under any illusions as to who really held power in Denerim. Honora is strong enough to endure. She may make a few mistakes along the way, but she'll survive them. But this isn't the time to discuss such things. By all means. So far as anyone could tell, she was the undisputed monarch of the whole world. She'd fall, skin her knees, and command them to stop stinging. It may have worked, too. She bleeds just like anyone. Or are you surprised that my daughter ever fell down? If you're expecting some particular insight into my daughter's character, I'm afraid I'm probably not the best source. I'm hardly impartial. You already know the answer to that. Politics. I think you already know the answer to that. Gwaran sits in between the Brazilian forest and the sea. It's far from the old Tevinter roads. The village by our keep was never even as big as Redcliffe. There were always a few children around. Charcoal burners, sons and daughters mostly, or the children of servants. They formed into noisy gangs in the courtyard for their games. But Honora never joined them. I don't know. Children are in some ways vicious animals, forming packs and defending them from outsiders. Honora was always an outsider. Cailan. He was a bit younger than she was, but Honora would lead him about the palace like a puppy on a leash, deep in adventures together. I believe the two of them once fought an army of ogres in the wine cellar. That was their explanation for all the broken bottles, anyway. Because it was vacant, and though it's off the trade routes close to Denerim, it was a good place for children to grow up. Solitude isn't terrible, you know. She had a free reign over the woods. But this is not really the time or place to discuss my daughter. We have work to do. Of course. Thank you.
Flowers? For me? They smell lovely, and there's something so familiar about them. These were my mother's flowers. She would sprinkle the dry petals amongst her clothes. Oh, they smell just like her. Thank you so much.
Do you want something? I suppose I have a moment. Of course.
Enchantment? Enchantment!